Hi, Cathy here from Cathy's Cute Creations with week 8. Whoops, did knock the camera there. Of the cotton cuts. There you go, Olympia. And my color is Nadia. For those just now tuning in, that's my color wave. And we have a block of the month, which is a cute little heart. There you go. All right, and this is going to be pretty easy. We've got 4 colors, and I'll show it to you here on my little design board. There we go. We have color A, which is my white with the little kitty cat on it, or the fox. I'm not quite sure what it is. I don't know if it's, I think they might be woodland fabrics, because outdoor woodland really, because I think there's a mouse on the next one here. But not, yeah, that's a little mouse. And I've had them with deer. There's a mouse. So I think they're outside woodland, so I don't think it's a cat. I think it's a fox. Anyway, that's my A. And then this is D, E, and F. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started and we'll put it together. Alrighty, we're going to put our 2 squares together, and since mine have stripes in them, I am making sure that my stripes go left and right, which is not up and down. And if you've got this, you can do either way you want, up and down or sideways. I'm just going to go sideways with it. I'm going to tell you that the temperature got up to 65 today, which is pretty hot for March. And they're talking about snow for tomorrow. So right now it's 58 out there, and it is, I think, after 6 o'clock, about 6:30. That's like, oh my gosh, I had to put my shorts on. Whew, hot. All right, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to sew all 4 of these. I'm going to chain stitch them. Remember, this is where I'm doing 2 of them. I'm doing the Cathy wave for my daughter-in-law and the Nadia's for myself. I don't know if I'm going to add to her quilt, you know, add some more to it. I'm not quite sure if she's wanting a throw. I mean, she's short little thing, so this might be big enough for her. She asked why I never made my son a quilt. My son is hot-natured. He definitely doesn't want a quilt. Alrighty, and now what we're going to do, and we can go ahead and leave that attached right now, because the next step is actually making the flying geese. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to put together and do them. They all get done on the right hand side, and hopefully I don't have any hiccups. You know, this is where it likes to grab that fabric and go underneath, because it's the tip of it over here on this one corner. I'm hoping it won't do that. And when it comes to flying geese, you know, you've got to sew one side, one wing is what we call it, and then you've got to open the wing and press it before you sew the next one on. I'm just letting you know ahead of time. So don't jump the gun there, but do your right sides together. I always go from the nose down whenever I do it the first time around, because I'm right-handed and I do it on the right-hand side. And there's no rhyme or reason. It doesn't make any difference which way you do it, bottom to top or top to bottom. You just want to be consistent with it. And remember now, this is on the bias, so you want to be really, really careful so you don't stretch your fabric while you're trying to attach it and sew it. And I did clean my machine, by the way. It wasn't really filthy, but like I said, that last time I was sewing with it, it was making noises, so whenever it starts making a bunch of noises, I clean it out. It did have some threads in it, though, so maybe that was the problem. It does not need to be oiled. I don't oil my machine. It gets serviced. Uh-oh, it wants to tuck in here. There we go. Now we're going to iron all of these open, and it tells us which direction if you're following along and you've got the pattern. Okay, so that's what you have, and we're going to turn the fabric because they want D and E, and they want 2 sets of them. So you're going to attach this. Be sure and snuggle and or nestle, excuse me. I ironed my fabric to the light. So on this one, it went to the light, so it's to the left. This one, it's to the right. This way you can nestle them. All right, so let's put them together. And then I laid all of my flying geese up here because we're going to do the other side of the flying geese also. I did mark these right here where they're nestled because I want to make sure that the seams go correctly. So just take your time. now for the flying geese, I'm going to come from the bottom up. And just like before, we want to be careful because we're on the bias and it can get stretched out. So I usually just hold it, and then I'll hold it at this other end so it doesn't stretch. If it stretches, your quilt will end up being wavy and it won't lay down when it's time to lay it down. And there is going to be a spot when we make this that the when the pieces meet, one of them is going to be like 3 fabrics. So if you're one of the people that like to sew your fabric open when it comes to a seam, you can do that. You guys can iron these any way you want. If you are one of those people that have all your seams open, you can continue to do that. You don't need to lay them flat and go one direction or the other based on what these directions say. You do whatever you're comfortable with. And if some of the part of the squares that you make are laid open, that's fine. And some of them aren't, that's fine too. You don't have to have it the same way on every single block. It doesn't need to be even like that. I've had them open on some and closed on others. So it just depends on the fabric itself and how it's laying. And I always try to iron it to whatever direction it will go. So if my flying geese act like they want to bury the nose, which you don't want to do that if you're going to have to mark it, okay? But if it's on the inside of a block, it's not going to be, nothing's going to be sewn over it, so that's fine. And I'll show it to you here when I get done. I believe one of the squares ends up like that, and I'll show you what I'm talking about so you have a better understanding of what I'm saying. Sometimes it's better to see it than to listen about it. Hopefully my hands aren't in the way here. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and I'm going to iron all of these open. Alrighty, so now we have the 2 blocks and the 4 flying geese. And what it wants us to do is take 2 of our flying geese. So let's set them aside here. We're going to turn them nose down. This is nose down. And this is where we're going to put our squares on the left-hand side. So let's make 2 of these first. Now what I did was I took my fabric and I put the square on the bottom and the other piece on the top so that I can see where my seam is at. If you can't do it that way because that's too confusing for you, then put yours where the fabric's on the top and the seam's on the bottom. I mean, not the seam, but the squares on the top and the rectangles on the bottom. But that's going to be a thick piece to go through. So in other words, just do it this way. Just be mindful that when you go down, you're going to want to watch this corner so it doesn't flip up over here because it's going downward if you ironed it correctly. If you want to pin it so that it doesn't go up, that's fine too. I just got my finger on it. There we go. Alrighty, so now we're going to take the D fabric at the top left. We're going to attach it to the goose and we're going to mark this tip so we don't lose it. So that's the first thing we're going to do. And do you remember how you mark your tip? You're going to take a line right here where your sewing line is, put your pin above it, make a mark, and now take your ruler and just mark it so that you can sew over the top of that line and you won't take that tip. Let's do that. Now, after you've marked your tip, what we're going to do is we're going to line this up, this right here. Let me get a little closer. We're going to line this up so that this right here tip goes along this line. We want this tip to go along that line. So line it up the best that you can like that. That looks like it's going to go right up the middle. Set it down and put a pin on it. Just like this. And that's it. I'm not going to pin this, but you can pin this side here to hold it. And then we'll start on that end, we'll go across that line, and then we'll come down to the other end. And if you want to put a pin on this end down here, you can do that too. I'm not going to. All I'm going to do is hold it in place like that when I get down to it and go straight down. That's it. Now, this is me laying it on the table and doing it to show you that instead of holding it in your hand, it's easier to do on the table. Here it is right here on the table. There's the fabric. And you can see by lifting it up that it is right there. This is the tip and it's going right along here. And see how much easier it is just to do it on your table than to have it in your hand. Okay, so if you have the capability of doing it on your table, that's a lot easier for you. Do it that way. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to chain stitch these. Go right across that line, slow down, and like I said before in other videos, but if this is your first video with me and you're just now learning this, then what you can do is you can take your stitch length, make it longer so that when you go across this, if you accidentally take your tip, you can take it out. It'll be easier to take your thread out if it's longer than if it's shorter. Alrighty, just in case you marked it incorrectly. But this will keep you from losing your tip. And we'll just bring the next one up here. Sometimes the top fabric's a little bit longer than the bottom, so what you want to do is just pull your bottom a little bit and even your top over it, and then hold on to it. It'll feed itself, so it'll be even. All right, let's go ahead and iron these open. We're going to sew this to this. First thing I did was I marked my tip. I'm going to match that up first, and then I'm going to nestle. All right, let's chain stitch these after I got them pinned. Now, if you need to pin them more than twice, go ahead and do that. Remember, if you have to tug a little bit to get it to work, then tug on it. When I say tug, I mean grab it here and just slowly pull it a little bit. Don't pull it a lot because you could break your needle, misalign your sewing machine, all kinds of things. Iron them open. That's what I was talking about when I was talking about ironing it open. Here it is open because this seam here, this is going to be marked to keep from losing our tips. Okay? Whenever we attach this block. Now, this one also over here. So this here, let me turn it this way for you. Instead of ironing it this way, which would affect this here, folded down, I went ahead and ironed it on top so that the flap went up, and that's what I was talking about. This one goes open and this one doesn't, so it doesn't make any difference, but this, the tips, it's going to be easier to mark these tips. That's the way that I was talking about ironing them. All right, let's take a look at both these blocks. Yeah, with the Cathy right next to it. Look at the difference in those two squares. So they've each got 2 squares done. You can see here, and here's 2. So that's it for, and this is the small size now, but that's it for month 8. Okay, thank you everybody for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet and you want to, go ahead and click on it, and then click that little bell and you'll get notifications whenever I put up the YouTube videos. If you'd like to make a comment, go ahead and make a comment, and I'll see y'all next time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.